Here we go. Do you remember what the amplitude is for this first graph? Positive 2. Always write the positive. It's always positive. And the period is going to be 2 pi divided by 1, which is 2 pi. It's 2 pi divided by the number in front of x. Okay. And then the amplitude for the bottom one is going to be 6, and the period is going to be 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. So what I'd like to do, calculus should be humbling. If it was easy, everybody would take it. But there's only 28 of you that are smart enough to even attempt. Raise your hand if you think Whitney's dumb. Nobody here thinks that. We would never say it about you. Don't say it about yourself. All right. She probably got a B+. So, all right. Let's mark it off. You can see here that the amplitude is 6 and the amplitude is 2. If I want to see both graphs, what should I put for my top mark? 2 or I should put 6. So that's the first thing you want to think about is I got to see both graphs. Okay, got to think through that. Yeah, so I went up by 2s. Make sure you grab. Yep, there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I have the period, 2 pi, pi over 2, okay? And so I'm going to mark off 2 pi because I want to see everything. I divide it in half to get pi, that in half to get pi over 2, and then this third tick mark is always 3 times the other tick mark. So does anybody know why I divide it into 4 quadrants? Why do I divide it into 4? Yeah, because this represents the 4 quadrants it takes in order for the unit circle or for the sine to complete its transition to unit circle. I'll do the same thing on the other side. And we will start right here. Y is equal to -2 sine of x. Where does the sine graph start? Will it start in the middle, at the max, or the min? Do you remember? Sine always starts in the middle. And because it's negative, will it start by going up or by going down? It will start by going down. I don't go all the way down to -6, but just down 2 units. I'm going to draw the sine curve. After you draw yours, why don't you go ahead and look at the persons next to you and make sure that you judge their work. Laugh at them if it's poor. I've got extras for you, buddy.
Last semester you had like 3 or something.
Question. How much homework did you actually do last semester?
Everybody okay with the first step? Okay, so let's go to the second step. For the second step, notice that the amplitude is 6. So I'm going to have to go all the way up to 6 and down to -6. Here's the part where people get confused. This is the part where you really have to focus. And 60% of you will get it just fine, and then 40% you might struggle with this. But let's consider that the period for the first one is 2 pi. So it completes a full cycle from 0 to 2 pi. This one is going to complete a full cycle in pi over 2 units. So instead of taking this long to complete a cycle, it just takes that long to complete a cycle. See that? So it's going to start here. It will go to the top, back to the middle, to the bottom, and back up within that one cycle, within that 1 unit, that 1 tick mark. Yep, I'm going to draw it out. So I'm going to go up, down, and up. That's one cycle. And I'll do it again. Sure. Yep. Yep. So if you glance up here, please note again, I will draw it in black. As it starts, it must go up, down, and come back up by the time it gets to the first tick mark. That's one full cycle. Okay, and as I can see, you have 4 of those by the time you get to 2 pi. As you notice, 2 pi is 4 times the other period. You're going to have 4 times as many rotations. Now, I would like to show you something that I think is really quite fun. Take out your graphing calculator. Sometimes people look at my graph and they don't have kind words. They look at the graph and they say, well, I don't think that's probably a very good representation of what the two graphs look like. How seriously can we take a graph that looks like a bunch of squiggle marks? Well, I'm going to show you how to graph sine and cosine functions. And I go into y equals, I type in -2 sine of x. Because it's the first graph, I want it to stand out. You can do what you want, but I'm going to choose to make mine bold. And so I'm going to go over to this side, press enter to make that bold. And then I'm going to graph 6 sine of 4x. 6 sine of 4x. But I know that my window is a 10 by 10 window. Is this a 10 by 10 window? No. Not at all. If we go to our window, we can change things. The smallest x value, the least x value, is -2 pi. We will be working in radians for this entire unit. Never degrees for this unit. For the maximum value, we have +2 pi. Excuse me. For the x-axis, how often do we have a tick mark? Every pi over 2. The y minimum is -6. Pi over 2. The y maximum is +6. We have, for the y values, I have a tick mark every 2. So I'm going to type in 2. And we can see how the real graph that we get on our calculator compares to the graph that we produced. The last thing I need you to do is make sure you are working in radians. So if you press mode, check to make sure you're working in radians. If you're not, that's a problem. And so I press graph, and I look, and I can now judge how accurate is my graph compared to the graph of the computer. And I would say that my graph is, well, it's almost identical. So this was not just a quick, like, you know, oh, hey, we're going to draw an estimation of the graph. We actually came up with a really, really good representation. And I would argue that if we would have started this course, or this unit yesterday, I would have said, you're going to start producing graphs that look like that. You would have been intimidated. You would have been like, oh, how are we going to do that? That looks complicated. When really, not too bad, is it? It's pretty good. Any questions before we move on to the last one? You have some time to work. Okay, then let's go to the last one. Here I have a cosine graph. I'm going to go with the amplitude, and I'm going to go with the period. What is the amplitude for the first one? What is the period? 2 pi over 1 or 2 pi. And then I have y equals negative cosine of 2x over 3. What is the amplitude for this one? 1. And what is the period? It will be 2 pi divided by what is the number in front of x? 2 over 3. 2/3 is the number in front of x. Yep, I multiply by the reciprocal, 3 over 2, and you can see the 2's are gone. I get 3 pi. So my x-axis, I want to stretch it out to 3 pi. I divide it in half to get 3 pi over 2. What do you get if you divide 3 pi over 2 in half? 3 pi over 4, so says the smart guy in the corner. The third tick mark will always be 3 times the first tick mark. So what is the third tick mark? 9 pi over 4. Negative 3 pi, negative 3 pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 4, and negative 9 pi over 4. For my y-axis, I'm going to go up to 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Okay. Which one do you think we should graph first, the top one or the bottom one? I always encourage you to do the one that requires the full period. So seeing how this one requires the 3 pi, I'm going to graph the bottom one. The bottom one, where will it start? Starts down 1 unit. Yep. Cosine always starts at the max, the min, or the max or the min. Okay. Because it's negative, it's going to start at the minimum. I'm going to go up to this spot, up here. You may have a really bad curve, like you know you've got a bad sine wave, cosine wave. Just looks ugly. No, I think yours look pretty nice. Yep, no, that's pretty good. Yours is, these are kind of like mountains. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
You're not saying anything.
yeah. All right. Okay, now let's do the second one. Amplitude of 3, period of 2 pi. So where will I start? All the way up at 3. Now here's where there's some thinking that comes in. We need to grow our brains a little bit, okay? Anytime you enter a state of confusion, you're able to work through it. You build neurons in your brain. You became smarter, okay? 2 pi, where is that on the graph? You tell me when you feel like I get to about 2 pi.
Right there.
Yeah, because 9 pi over, so 2 pi is the same as 8 pi over 4. And you can see right here, this is 9 pi over 4, so it's probably pretty close to that. So I'm going to estimate that I should be back at the top at right about that spot. And I should be back at the top at right about, negative, 8 pi over 4 on that side. So then I'm going to, halfway in between, I'm going to have to be all the way down at the bottom. Halfway in between, I'll be all the way down at the bottom. So I'm not making a perfect graph, but it's pretty good. Yeah. If I type that into my calculator, I'm guessing I get something that would be pretty close to that, very similar. Okay. So I graphed both of those. So I took off a couple problems like that from your assignment because some of them I didn't write very good problems and they get a little bit overly confusing in some areas. Try to give you the ones that are going to make the most sense. But you do have a significant amount of time right now to work. I am going to pause you at about 5 after, so I'm going to give you about 12 minutes here to do some work. And at 5 minutes left, I got to pause you just to share some things about tomorrow. So go ahead and get to work.